Good morning, all of you. Welcome for day 2 of phase 1. Today, I welcome a distinguished guest, Rama Devi Gudemela ma'am, for today's session. Rama Devi ma'am, మిమ్మల్ని మేము హృదయపూర్వకంగా ఆహ్వానిస్తున్నాము.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
ఎలా ఉన్నారు? బాగున్నారా?
Yeah. చాలా బాగున్నాను, ma'am. And you have learned Telugu. That is very nice, ma'am.
Just to welcome you, ma'am, I have learned this few lines.
That's enough. I'm very happy. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. So today I welcome the guests and all the participants present here. Now, as we all know, in the practical training subject, yesterday we have dealt with contempt of court law, and today we are going to see about Advocates Act. Now, I request our principal sir for his welcome address.
Good morning to one and all. Myself, Dr. Punyendra Kumar Dev, Principal, Navajivan Law College, heartily welcome all the participants who have participated yesterday and today, and the students of Navajivan Law College. At the outset, I would welcome our today's resource person, Rama Devi Madam. Madam, Namaskaram.
Namaskaram, sir. Namaste, sir.
Elagunnar, Madam.
Thank you. My goodness, it's unbelievable, sir. Even you're talking in Telugu. Bagunnanu, sir. Bagunnanu. Meer ela unnaru?
Actually, I belong to Tekkeli, Andhra Pradesh, Srikakulam.
Okay. Nice, sir. Wonderful. I'm very happy that Nasik people can speak Telugu so much, so fluently, and meer Telugu allayundi. Very happy, sir.
Actually, my studies were in Visakhapatnam, Andhra Pradesh University.
Andhra University, sir. Okay. I'm a product of Osmania University, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So we are from both same state.
Yes,
so I'm
sir.
pleased to invite you on this occasion and welcome you for this session, sir, madam. And I'm very grateful that you have accepted our invitation to be a resource person on this occasion to enlighten the students with your vast knowledge and experience. And
sure.
Now I hand over the mic to Sanjita Inandar.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the welcome. And ma'am, I have learned from my principal, sir, to welcome you. Yes. So I would now like to request our senior faculty, Pandey, sir, for introducing our guest.
Good morning, all of you. I'm really privileged to introduce our today's resource person, Dr. Rama Devi Gudemala. She is specialized in public and private international law. Her research areas includes international law, environmental law, human rights, and consumer law. She comes with 12 years of extensive research, teaching, and legal industrial experience. A gold medalist from Osmania University, topping the university for LLB course. She pursued international law as a specialization in her master's, and she was awarded PhD, and her research topic was inter-country adoption, emerging trends in national and international law from Osmania University, Hyderabad. Dr. Rama Devi has participated and presented research papers in various national and international seminars and conferences. She conducted and coordinated various national level law academic activities like moot court, conferences, and seminars. She is invited to participate as panelist and deliver guest lectures in national and international seminar and conferences. Dr. Rama Devi has various publications on her credit in international and national peer-reviewed reputed journals, and also edited the books on international trade law published by ICFAI Publishing House. Currently, she is working as Assistant Professor of Studies, ICFAI Law School, Hyderabad. So I once again welcome Dr. Rama Devi Gudemala and request her to address our students. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pandeji. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Shaista ma'am, for the wonderful introduction and welcoming address. Yeah, if you permit, I can start the presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Hope the screen is visible, ma'am, to everyone.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay. So one second, I'll just start the slideshow so you can see it much more in a bigger platform. Okay. Good morning to one and all who are present here, the students and faculty members. So I'm glad and privileged to be here, part of this session, and deliver my insights on how nobility is achieved in legal profession through Advocates Act of 1961. And I would like to just start with a question that whether do you agree that advocacy is a noble profession? Whether do you agree that advocacy is a noble profession? I wish to keep this session a little interactive rather than, one-side talk, because from the time the online classes have commenced, what we are facing as teachers, the problem is we are missing the students' live reactions. Okay, so in the class, at least you nod your head. We see that you're nodding your head and at least responding to what we are saying. But here in live platform, we don't see you. We just see your names, and I can see Shaista ma'am or one or two people. So just let us keep this a little interactive session so that we can understand each other and go ahead and learn it, how advocacy can be a noble profession. So before we start the discussion, this is the first question that I am posing, that how do you say, or do you agree that advocacy is a noble profession? Right from day one of your college, from the day one, even me, when I have entered into LLB course, I remember in the orientation session, many of the professors came and they have addressed us by saying that advocacy is a noble profession, and we are glad that you are going to be a part of this noble profession. But I still had the doubt that in what sense they mean that advocacy is a noble profession. Okay, why aren't the other professionals noble, are called as a noble profession, and why only advocacy is called as a noble profession? So this was always ringing in my head. Then later on, as soon as I passed out, then I realized that advocacy is a noble profession, of course. Why and how we are going to see in this lecture. And we are also going to look at whether advocacy is a profession, first of all, and how we are that legal professionals, how legal professionals stand out when compared to the other professionals, that is doctors or chartered accountants, why we are considered to stand out from all the other professionals. So this is one thing that you will be learning, and how the nobility is achieved with the help of Advocates Act in this legal profession. Okay, so this is all the things that we'll be discussing in today's session. So before moving ahead, this is the question: what does it mean to be a lawyer? This is a question which is posed by Bentham to Blackstone somewhere in the year 18th century. Bentham, he posed this question before the forum to Blackstone. So both of them are jurists, and Blackstone, he has addressed then and there with all these points, and later on it was deduced into writing. So what did he say, that what is it meant to be a lawyer? How did he put forth his point here in this 4 points? So what all did he mention? So lawyer, he is a member of a learned and a noble profession in the 18th century. So this was what he stated. Then later on, it went ahead by mentioning that law practice is a privilege and a wise discipline. Okay, so wit is equally important to be applied here in the law profession, and moreover, it's a privileged profession. Lawyer or advocacy or legal profession, we call it as a privileged profession. And other than this, if you see, there is a duty on part of the lawyer to serve the public at a large. We are serving the society here at a large, and we are serving the society using diligence and competency. Okay, so a lawyer here possesses certain skills. He applies that skills and he serves the society. We will see this point later slides, and we will try to understand how nobility is achieved here. Okay, then going ahead with the last point, he said that a lawyer has ethical and moral duties not only towards his client, just like a doctor or a chartered accountant, they are concentrating much more on the client that they have there in their presence. But here, the lawyer is having a duty towards a client, towards the court also. In wherever he's practicing, he has duties even to be abided towards the court. So here we are going to go ahead and look at the aspect whether advocacy is a profession in the first sense, for us to talk on the other aspect, how nobility is achieved in the legal profession. So in order to qualify a particular avocation or a job as a profession, certain characteristics are laid down. Okay, so only if these characteristics are satisfied, we can qualify an avocation to be a profession. Okay, so what are the characteristics needed here to be called as a to be called for a avocation as a profession is, first one, if you see, there should be a prescribed educational qualification. So students and the participants, I request you to tell me what is the prescribed educational qualification needed for a person to practice in the court of a law as an advocate. Please let us keep this interactive. This is very easy for you to answer. I expect students to answer this.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. Yes, what is the prescribed education? Yes, sir.
A bachelor's degree in law.
Exactly. So it is LLB or bachelor's degree in law. Exactly. So in few places in India, we call it as LLB. In India, it is generally LLB now. So in long back when in Andhra University, they still call BL. Right, sir? Principal, sir, if he's available, he will say in Andhra University and few universities, it is not called as LLB, but we call it as Bachelor in Law, BL degree. Okay, so like that, it is bachelor's degree in law is what is the prescribed educational qualification which is needed, right? So not only avocation to be called as a profession, there is a prescribed educational qualification. To practice law, you need to have LLB or law degree, and to practice medicine, you need to have a degree in medicine, that is MBBS. To practice chartered accountancy course, even that is a profession. Okay, you can bring it under the professional course. So chartered accountancy, there is a prescribed qualification, that is chartered accountancy course, which is offered by ICAI Institute. So like that, the prescribed education qualification is one of the essential character here to qualify a particular avocation to be qualified as a profession, right? Then you come down to the second point, practical training, right? So supervision of peer in the profession here is very, very essential. You just can't get into practice without any proper supervision, right? There needs to be a guidance. So apart from what you are learning here in the college, the improvement or the practicality, how you are going to achieve it, that is through a proper supervision from your own peer group. Okay, from your own peer group. So where do you find and which is the body that is supervising you to practice the profession in a noble way by following all the ethics and all the code of conduct is Bar Council of India. So every a vocation to be qualified as a profession, there has to be a body to supervise your work, to supervise the way you're professing your profession, right? For a medical professional, it is a Medical Council of India. For a chartered accountancy, it is ICAI. So these bodies are nothing but a group of peers. They are there who are belonging to the same profession, group of lawyers or group of judges. They are there in that particular profession, whoever are in the legal profession, all of them together constitute BCI, that is Bar Council of India. And this is the peer group which is going to monitor how you are professing your profession in law. So here, these three essentials actually are important characteristics to qualify a particular vocation under the category of profession. So here we can clearly say as legal or law avocation qualifies as a profession because all these three characters are qualified here. All these three characters are fulfilled, right? There is a proper degree which will make you understand how you have to apply your legal knowledge and then determine the positives and negative merits of the case, and then how you are going to apply it. Only if you have a practical training in hand, you are going to have the applicability knowledge of the knowledge that you have actually gained in your college. And then whatever you're practicing or whatever you're doing your job, whatever profession you're carrying out, be it LLB, medical profession or legal profession, there is a body to monitor whether you're following all the ethics and norms of the profession and you are not involved in any kind of a misconduct. If these 3 points are satisfied, you can call a particular avocation as a profession. So here I would rightly say that advocacy is a properly profession. And how nobility is achieved in legal profession, now we are going to look at that point. Okay, so nobility is very, very important, and advocacy is no doubt a legal profession. And legal professionals, you stand out from all other professionals. How are we different, or how legal professionals are different from the other professionals, and how the nobility is achieved in the legal profession is why legal profession is called as the noble profession. We'll see now. Okay, so advocates, they serve the society. The prime important factor here that how we stand different from the other professionals is the main goal of a legal professional is to serve the society. Okay, so we are not serving only one client there who is sitting before us and who is coming up with his own problems. We are not doing that. What we are doing is we are assisting the judiciary to come to the right judgment. We are providing the judiciary with the necessary facts. We are putting before the judiciary the necessary facts. We are guiding, assisting the judiciary to come to the right judgment. Okay, to come to the right judgment. So the main task here of a legal professional is to assist and serve the society by providing the society with the right justice. Okay, so providing the judiciary with the justice and to eliminate all these social evils that are prevailing in the society right now. So whatever facts a legal professional is putting forth before the judiciary is enlightened with these facts, and then it comes out to a particular judgment which actually throws a light on the society. If the judiciary is not supported with the right facts, if the judiciary is not provided with the right enlightenment by the legal professional who is pleading before the judiciary can be misled. Okay, so what would happen if the judiciary is misled with the wrong facts and all? The system of justice would be shattered completely. And you, being law students, you know very well that what would happen if a wrong judgment is delivered by the judiciary. The impact of wrong judgment will not be limited only on that particular person, but it will dwell upon all the lower courts that are below the superior court which is giving out the judgment. So it is impacting the society at a larger scale. That is the reason advocates, we are not alone serving one particular client that is there before you. The nobility in the legal profession is achieved just because the legal professionals concentrate on the betterment of a society by guiding the judiciary, which is the epitome of providing justice. We are here to guide, we are here to assist the administration of justice and lead and enlighten the judiciary by providing the right facts, by providing the law to it, and by holding that this is how the judiciary should take a call if this is the case before it and this is the facts before it and the law is like this. So interpretation should be like this. This is how the job of a lawyer is, to enlighten the judiciary with the right set of facts that are there before it. So here, the nobility in the legal profession is achieved because advocates serve the society and they assist the administration of the judiciary. And the aim here of the legal profession is not to fill his pockets, okay, not to fill his pockets, but the aim here is to protect the citizens from all the social evils. And as Roscoe Pound clearly held in jurisprudence, legal professionals are social engineers who bring social change and development in the society. Okay, so just a continuation of whatever I have said. Judiciary, it is an indispensable wheel of justice where it acts as an epitome of providing the justice. So to deliver the best judgments, right thinking lawyers are very much needed, and the right thinking lawyers are those lawyers which have certain morals and ethics. Okay, they have to follow certain code of morals and ethics. Only if they have this morals and ethics, they will be in a position to guide and to assist the judiciary in the administration of justice, right? If they are not having the morals, if they are not having a set of conduct or rules, then obviously it is every possibility that the judiciary can be misled, and the judgments which are delivered by the courts and the judiciary can be detrimental for the society. So if the lawyer is having certain code of conduct, morals and ethics, he will be the right person to deliver the justice in a fair and a proper manner. So morals and ethics are very, very important to be to have it for a legal professional to deliver, to assist the judiciary, because here he is assisting the judiciary. That means the judgments which are being which are coming from a judiciary is not only limited to that person, but it extends to whole of this society at a large, right? So that is the reason the judgments which are delivered has to be guided by a properly followed moral ethical lawyer. Okay, so the nobility, the next point, if you see, the nobility in the legal profession lies in the selfless efforts of a legal community, so, and to uphold the ideals of the society, and the relentless service which is done by the legal profession. So we are selfless people whose main criteria here is to serve the society, but not to fill the pockets. That is what I have been telling you earlier. And moreover, relentless efforts, whatever we are doing is for the betterment of the judiciary. We should not mislead the judiciary at all by following unethical or immoral conduct, right? So we are here to help the society. This is what will make us stand out from all the other professionals, right? So we are not only thinking about one client who is sitting in front of us and he is coming and telling us, I have murdered the person, so you try to defend me. That is not how the law works. If you have murdered the person, then you are the culprit. That is how we should be. We should not try to save the person and bring him out of the clutches, saying that no, you have not murdered. I'll ensure that you come out of this case in clean and neat hands. So that is also a part of ethics that one needs to follow, because the judiciary is there to try the person. When he himself is coming before you, how can you uphold him and say that, wait, I'll protect you? That is not how you should work, right? That is not how you should be working. You should have ethics to serve the society and to provide the right facts to the court, right? So this is one point where I would say that we differ from the other professionals in the society. And dispensation of justice is not solely depending upon the judiciary alone, but it is a together act of bar and bench. So what is bar and bench? It is a collective group of lawyers as well as judges. So justice is not only done by judiciary alone, but it is the together effect of bar, the person who is professing the legal profession, along with that, whoever is there in the bench, that is the judges, together act would actually dispense the justice. This is one case from Indian Council of Legal Aid and Advice versus Bar Council of India, 1995 Supreme Court's case. Here, how the nobility in the legal profession is attached. This is explained by Supreme Court in its own words. Just see, duty of a lawyer is to assist the court in the administration of justice, and practice of law has a public utility flavor. We are serving the society, so it is having the flavor of public utility services, right? The main intention of a lawyer is to serve the society by following certain set of ethics and morals. And therefore, he must strictly adhere to certain set of code of conduct and behave as a noble professional. Okay, so this is what is held by Supreme Court itself. So a particular, because he is assisting the judiciary, he has to follow certain code of conduct, and also he has to behave as a noble professional here. Okay, so and that is the reason there are certain ethics and ideals which a legal professional has to follow. And being my research area as it is national consumer consumer law, I have just tried to pick this case that is relating to Bar of Indian Lawyers versus D.K. Gandhi's case, 2007 Supreme Court, where the stay on the order of National Commission, that is National Consumer Commission, was issued by Supreme Court, stating that advocates cannot be held liable under Consumer Act. Okay, why? Because they are to be considered as serving the society rather than serving the client, right? So here the difference was shown by the Supreme Court, and the stay was issued here by the Supreme Court on the order that was passed by the National Consumer Commission. And National Consumer Commission, it held that the advocate should be brought under the ambit of Consumer Act for the deficiency in the services. But Supreme Court had held that let us put a stay on this matter, but the case was not decided on the merits, so still it is pending before the Supreme Court. But it held that advocates cannot be dragged to consumer courts for allegedly providing unsatisfactory services to the clients. If at all, if there is any professional misconduct on part of the advocates, they are to be made liable under the Advocates Act, but not under the Consumer Forum. Why? The reasoning that was provided by the Bar Council members or Bar of Indian Lawyers was they cannot be compared with the other professionals like lawyers or doctors. They are to be considered as a different professionals or outstanding professionals who are different from the other category of professionals. Here, they are not only serving the client, they are serving the society. They are assisting the judiciary to reach to the right judgment. So they cannot be brought under the ambit of Consumer Protection Act. This was held in Bar of Indian Lawyers versus D.K. Gandhi's case. And I would say that this has led to a lot of dispute, lot of rumors, not rumors, a lot of contentions came up from the society where it was not much accepted. So there is a stay still, and the Supreme Court did not delve into merits of this case, and this case is still pending before the Supreme Court. So still there is a jinx as to whether the advocates can be dragged under consumer forums or no. Okay. So here, just we'll look at how Advocates Act is achieving the nobility in the legal profession. So I would say that Advocates Act is a separate legislation. I'm not trying to go into the history of the Advocates Act, but just a brief outline as to what is the objective or what are the objectives of Advocates Act 1961. So it is a separate legislation which deals with the legal professionals, that the legal professionals and the ethics that are to be followed by the legal professionals, whoever are practicing law. Okay. So this deals with the code and conduct of advocates, and the code and conduct consist of moral and ethical rules that the advocates has to follow while professing the law profession. And what are the objectives of the act? It is to establish the Bar Council of India. Primary objective is to establish Bar Council of India. So Advocate Act is a framework. That's it. It is just a framework, but the rules as to how advocate should be and how the punishment should be given and how the disciplinary committee should be constituted by the bar councils, everything is laid down in the rules that are framed by the Bar Council of India and the state bar councils. Okay, so the Framework Act basically lays down all the provisions, but the rules as to how that point has to be achieved, how the code of conduct has to be laid down, it is the duty of the Bar Council of India rules. So we will see even that. The second objective here is to establish a state bar council in each and every state of India. Yes, each and every state has a state bar council where you get enrolled. Okay, as soon as you complete your LLB, you will be getting enrolled in the state bar councils only. And the registration is also undertaken in the state bar councils. And third one, to frame and maintain the code of conduct that is known as professional ethics for lawyers. Right? So where you find the ethics and conducts, it is mentioned again under the Advocates Act 1961. But under Advocates Act, you have certain rules which are laid down by Bar Council of India rules. And in that, you will find the code of conduct that advocate has to follow to achieve nobility in the legal profession. So every lawyer in India, he has to follow the same set of code of conduct which is laid down. And in failure of following these code of conduct, the advocate can be held liable for professional misconduct. So here, if you see, where is the power which is provided under Advocates Act 1961 to the Bar Council is under Section 49(1) subclause C of 1961 Act. Under Advocates Act, Section 49 deals with the power to make rules with respect to code and conduct that the advocates has to follow. Okay, so these rules are now currently called as Bar Council of India Rules 1975. So there are changes which are gradually made to these rules, but these rules are stagnant in nature, and the ethical code of conduct and the moral code of conduct which a professional has to follow is laid down under Chapter 2, Part 6 of BCI rules. And these rules impose duties on the advocates. Okay, so here you have to understand how nobility is achieved in the legal profession is that through these duties. So duties are assigned to the advocate under these rules. And if there is a breach of the duty, which is there bestowed on part of the advocate, it results to the professional misconduct. And these duties are often referred to as lamps of advocacy. So how many lamps of advocacy are there? We will see that there are 7 lamps of advocacy. But before that, these duties, whatever we are talking, what are the duties of a lawyer under the rules of 1975? So a lawyer has a duty towards the client. The lawyer has a duty towards the fellow lawyers. The lawyer primarily has a duty towards the court. So yesterday in your contempt of court law, you must have seen how the lawyer should behave in the court and how he should respect the court, the judges, how he should behave in the court properly, right? So these are all the code of conduct and the professional ethics that a lawyer needs to follow. So there are duties which are bestowed upon the lawyer in these rules which are framed by Bar Council of India. Okay, so all these rules together determine professional ethics. So what could be the duties towards the client generally? So if a client is approaching the advocate, a proper advice has to be given to the client, right? Whether he is going to really receive the compensation or the relief, whatever he is supposed to get, to what extent he is going to get, that has to be clear. And there is a law which is mentioned here as to whether the relief is going to be granted to the person or whether the compensation can be claimed based on how much of the liability can be imposed on the other side. Everything has to be properly assessed by the lawyer. Never you should misguide a client. Okay, never there should be a misguidance. If a client is coming to you and he is asking so I have seen some cases where they were like, the clients come and say, my father-in-law is very old person, so I will just make him to sleep, and someday I can take his thumb impression on a paper so that all his property will devolve on me. So can I say, yes, you go ahead and you do that? Do you think that is a noble way to guide the client to do something mischievous or mischief like this? So I would never ever suggest that. What I would say to the client, if he's coming to me with some succession related issues, I would say that, yes, according to the law, even you are eligible to a share. So let us go to the court and let us have a let us discuss, let us put it up before the judiciary, let the other parties contend, and you have a proper channel to acquire the property. Do not use any mischief or these kind of techniques like producing of false documents and then putting it up before the court. You think that by doing all this, your client will get the relief, or your client will be saved, or your client will be getting the justice. Judiciary is not as a lawyer be booked for professional misconduct. Never ever misguide your client. Okay. And you cannot compromise the case in absentia of the client with the other side. So if there are any negotiations where the compounding of where the compromise has to be reached in your case, both the parties should be present. The advocate on the other side has to be present, and only then there has to be a proper negotiations, and the offense can be compromised. Sorry, not offense, the civil case can be compromised, or through negotiations, the case can be settled out of the court itself, right? And towards the client, one more important duty. There are many duties, but I have just picked few here. So the client here, the advocate here cannot demand more fees on winning the matter, right? See, because I have won, you have to give me some share, okay, from the alimony that you have received. If you have contended a case for alimony for a female who divorce case, and the huge amount of alimony is received by the female, you cannot just increase the fee and say that, see, because you have won, I need a share in your alimony. Okay, so actionable claims, you cannot claim much more higher fee than what you have actually agreed priorly before contending the case. So why this is important is because you are here to serve the society. Your concentration should not be only on the client that is there before you, but you should be looking at a much wider angle, right? That is, you are helping out the society, you are helping out the judiciary in reaching to the right judgment, right? So only if the right judgment is given by the judiciary, the other cases that come up before the court will also have the same effect, right? Same effect. So you are there to do the justice to the society. So society at large is getting benefited from you. So this is one thing where the lawyer is having a duty towards the client. And these points and these code is very much enshrined in the Bar Council of India Rules 1971. And these are not limited in nature. It is exhaustive. Okay. So whether the code of ethics or morals or code of conduct that a lawyer has to follow, this is not limited edition or limited in number, but they are exhaustive in nature. So how and all we will see. So duty towards the fellow lawyers, the second one. So when you're addressing your fellow lawyer in the court also, you should say, my dear learned counsel, the other side counsel, or my learned friend. You have to address this. Okay, in your moot court classes, you must have learned, my counsel, my learned friend, he is making such a statement. Okay, and you should never show your anguish. Okay, you should never show your anguish on face or just abuse him by saying that, what are you talking, all nonsense, all these kind of statements you cannot make in the court. That would be contempt of court again. So you should have a decorum. You should respect your fellow lawyers, fellow friends also, whoever are there in the same profession. Then third point, duty towards the court. Here, in duty towards the court, basically, if you are not obeying this, it would be mostly leading to, rather than professional misconduct, it would be falling under the category of contempt of court. Okay, so you have to obey the court rules, court manners. First thing, you have to wear a prescribed uniform, and you have to speak politely. The judge, you have to address him as honorable judge, or your lordships, or my lord is no more accepted, so your lordships or honorable judge. Nowadays, most of the senior lawyers address the judge out of friendship. They address them as sir also. Okay, so there is a proper way to address the judge. And you should not produce false documents, and you should not do any kind of mischief or any kind of mishandlings with the records that are available in hand. Okay, all these duties together, they put or they determine or are called as professional ethics. Other than the duties that we have seen, these are also the other duties that a lawyer has. Duty to impart training without charging any fee for that, and duty to provide free legal aid to the needy people. So generally, if you see in US, they have a separate legislation to deal with the pro bono cases. So every law firm should and must have some amount of pro bono cases. So that is a condition there. So if you see the major law firms in US also, they have certain pro bono cases where they do it for free. Okay, pro bono cases are those cases where the services are offered for free. So these kind of act is not there in India, but we have NALSA and SALSA, where that is National Legal Services Authority and State Legal Services Authority, where the advocates go and enroll themselves. So as whenever there is a need to provide free legal services, these advocates will be called and they will be representing the case. Okay, so you have to, if some poor person is coming to you, you cannot say, I'm not going to accept the case because you're poor. This is very wrong. Okay, this is not at all a code of conduct which you should follow. You should have the sense in you that you are serving this society. If that is your area of specialization, if you are in a civil law and the civil matter is there and the person is a poor person, you have to take up that case. You have to take up that case. You cannot say that I don't want to take up this case because you're poor or because you cannot afford my fee. This is a wrong way to state that. Then it would be nothing but just a breach of your professional ethics. Okay. So these are the 7 lamps of advocacy. As I have said, whatever duties till now we have discussed, all these are enshrined in the 7 lamps of advocacy. So who actually came up with this concept of 7 lamps of advocacy is Justice Abbott Parry. So Bar Council of India has framed so many rules. So to keep in mind all those rules, it is very difficult, but you can keep in mind all these 7 lamps of advocacy, which is honesty, courage, industry, wit, eloquence, judgment, and fellowship. Honesty, you all know that we should be pioneer of dharma. So we should uphold the principles of justice always and prevent injustice from taking place. Courage, here, if you have all seen Jolly LLB movie, he tries there to put forth the right facts before the judiciary, right? Be it whatever hurdles he has faced, he will come up with the fact before the case and he wins it. That is nothing but the courage. Whatever be the situation, you have to face it and you have to bring the matter up before the judiciary. So that, sorry? So that, okay, so it was a disturbance.
Can you mute yourself?
Okay, so courage, it is nothing but the strength that we have to tackle the danger that is coming before the person, and we should not go back on any kind of danger that we are facing at the time of dealing with the case. We should be in a place to provide the right facts to the judiciary so that judiciary can give out its right judgment. Industry, yes. What is industry here? It is the skill set that you have acquired during your pursuance of the course, LLB. Okay, you will be having certain knowledge. The applicability knowledge, you will learn it when you are practicing and when you are under the supervision of your peer group or supervisor or a senior. right? So like that, industry is nothing but the hard-working skill that you should have, the applicability, the practical applicability of the knowledge that you have gained. This is very, very important. You have 100% marks, but you cannot apply the knowledge practically. It is not right for a lawyer. You should also know how to apply the knowledge that you have learned when you are reading that particular subject in your practicals. So equally, to qualify or to be successful in the legal profession, 3 essentials. There are only 3 points. First thing, acquire the knowledge. Continuously, you should update yourself with the knowledge in your field of practice. You should also be able to practically apply the knowledge that you have gained. Okay, practical application. Third one, it is zeal, the passion. If you are not having that passion, you will not be successful. The passion should lead you. See, my senior is only paying me 2,000. It is not even, I am unable to even get my petrol expenses. If you are saying this, 1 year you will be struggling, but in the next year you will know how to handle a case, right? So that you should see for yourself, and you should learn. You should have that zeal to pursue the legal profession and to serve the society. If you have this in your mind, you will be a successful lawyer. 3 essentials, right? So wit here, it is nothing but the presence of mind when you're arguing a case. So you should clearly elucidate the facts before the court, and you should create some kind of impression on the judge that you are being a right thinking member of the society. You are a right lawyer here who is having a proper ethics, and you are putting forth your point clearly. Okay, you should never try to mislead the judge. You should lead the judge so that he can give the right judgment. Eloquence, you should be a highly skilled speaker, and you should also leave an impression on the judge, and your way of putting forth your point should persuade the judge to listen to you and to understand the crux and the merits of the case, right? So judgment, very, very important. As a lawyer, you should not only think about your client that is there before you. You should also know what would be the counter arguments from the other side. Okay, you cannot limit yourself by saying that, okay, so if a client has come to you and he's coming up with some point, then you should also think from the other side, what would their point be, so that you can substantiate your point in a much more better way to convince the judge, right? So there is a quote also. He can't be a good lawyer unless he can't take 2 sides. That is, unless he doesn't think about the 2 sides, you cannot be a good lawyer. When your client is coming and tell you that, when your client is coming up with some point or with some issue, you should also think from the other person's perspective, and you should try to balance things out, and you should project your argument before the court in support of your client. Whatever arguments are in support of your client, you should try to put it forth before the court. You should also understand what kind of arguments you are going to counterface from the other side, right? That is known as judgmental capacity that a lawyer should and must possess. The last one here is fellowship. As I have earlier held, you have a duty towards your fellow peer group also. You should address them as learned counsels. You should not go and punch them on the face just because they are taking up the other side clients. You all should be friends. They are defending their clients. You are defending your clients. You should not behave like a small kids in the court. You should have that manners to ensure that in the court environment, you are trying to defend your client, he's trying to defend your client, and both of them together are assisting the judiciary, not your personal benefit. Okay. So finally, here we will see, we are now coming to professional misconduct. Sorry. So professional misconduct, what does it mean? Generally, there is no proper set of definition in anywhere you will find as to what constitute a professional misconduct. Okay, so in the BCI rules of 1975, the duties, whatever we have just discussed, all these duties together, if you are violating these duties, if you are not obeying or following these duties, if you are violating the set of code of conduct which is laid down in the Bar Council of India rules 1975, then it is amounting to professional misconduct. So that is what is mentioned here. And on professional misconduct, the bar councils, The State Bar Councils will generally constitute a disciplinary committee, and Section 9 of the Advocates Act states that every bar council shall consist of a disciplinary committee, and if there is a professional misconduct case before it, then the disciplinary committee will try to analyze the matter, and then it would try to punish the professional with either reprimanding him, that is by reprimanding means just orally giving him a warning, a strict warning kind of a thing, okay, or removal from services, his role from the role of advocates, his name is completely removed. So if he is removed from the roles of advocates, he cannot practice ever in life. So that is the power rested on disciplinary committee. And the another power is suspension for a certain time, for 2-3 years. If he's suspended from the roles for that 2-3 years of time, he is not supposed to practice in the court as an advocate. So these are the disciplinary actions which can be taken by the disciplinary committee for the professional misconduct which is found on part of the professional. So chapter 5 of the Act, it deals with, from section 35 to 44 deals with the conduct of the advocates, and also it provides for the punishments for advocates under disciplinary powers of Bar Council of India. So professional misconduct here does not only limit itself to professional misconduct, but also any other kinds of misconduct. Okay, if a professional is found guilty of some crime, then one has to look into whether he is fit to still practice the legal profession. The committee would be assessing that point. If he is found guilty of some other misconducts means if he is found guilty of committing a crime, the Bar Council here would try to assess whether he still is deemed to be fit to practice in the court of law. Okay, and if the crime is of such a nature which is directly rendering him unfit person to practice the profession, then he would be immediately removed from the role of Bar Council. He cannot practice. Like heinous crime, he has committed rape and he is found guilty of rape. He has committed murder, he is found guilty of murder. Then his names will be removed from the Bar Council. He is considered to be a person who is unfit to practice in that profession. Then if you see what is professional misconduct, it is an act of omission. It is equally an act of commission also, misfeasance or malfeasance. We say in the legal terms, misfeasance is nothing but omission. Okay, omission means you're supposed to wear a proper dress to the court when you're representing the matter. In the virtual proceedings that have been taking place recently during the COVID time, we see that most of the advocates did not follow the proper dressing code, due to which mostly the courts have issued contempt of court. Right? Some advocates, they have attended the virtual sessions by wearing banyan. Okay, so that is not how that is nothing but a professional misconduct only. It is an omission, act of omission. Act of commission means malfeasance. You are doing an act. So if you're going and punching the other side opposite counsel, that is an act of commission. That is also amounting to professional misconduct. So professional misconduct is a breach of code of conduct which are framed by Bar Council of India rules. And it tends to corrode the professional values that as an advocate you should be carrying. And any act which brings the disrepute, that is, your reputation would sink. Oh, he's a lawyer and he's behaving like this, so bad, and your reputation, if it is sinking down, and the whole of the legal fraternity is looked down there, then no doubt it would amount to professional misconduct. So there is no clear definition, as I have earlier mentioned, as to what is professional misconduct, but all these things can constitute a professional misconduct. And whatever code of conduct is mentioned in these rules, they are also not limited. They are also exhaustive in nature. But if any of these points strike, then...
Ma'am, your voice is breaking, ma'am.
Okay, sorry, ma'am. I think, am I audible now, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Shaista, ma'am, is my voice clear now?
Yeah, it's audible, but just it's breaking, ma'am.
Okay. My net is clear, ma'am. I don't think so. There is a problem.
Clear, ma'am. Now it's clear.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, attacking the nobility in the legal profession and breach of duties, as we have discussed above, everything together would constitute a professional misconduct. Ma'am, am I clear?
Yes, ma'am. Now very clear.
Okay. So determination, so this is what is all about, and I have said that what is the punishment that is imposed by the state bar councils while holding a disciplinary action against a professional. It is reprimanding or suspending or completely removal of his name from the rolls of state bar councils. So all this would amount to professional misconduct. And what are the other misconducts that other kind of misconduct? See here, there are two tests to determine whether the professional can be made liable for other misconducts, not the professional misconducts, the other misconducts. That one of them, so the first criteria here to determine whether the professional can be made liable for the misconduct is the whatever act he has committed, it should render the advocate unworthy to remain as a member of the profession. As I have earlier mentioned, the crime case. So if here the advocate, if he is rendering if the act that is committed by him is of such a nature that he should not at all be there in the legal profession, then obviously he will be pulled out. Okay, so we can bring him under the category of misconduct. And misconduct, the second point is should be of such a nature which a person should become unfit to be entrusted with the responsibilities and duties of an advocate, right? So these two tests are applied here to ensure whether the person can be continued as an advocate or he should be removed from the roles of the advocate. So much more definitions are provided even by the Supreme Court in various cases. So in this particular case, here what happened, Shambhu Ram Yadav versus Hanuman Das, the matter was posted before the Supreme Court of India. And what happened here is the counsel, he wrote a letter to the client stating that you have to pay 10,000 to me so that I can give this to the judge. And the judge here is demanding a bribe, right? And he wants this favor so that the influence can be imposed on the judge to deliver a judgment which is in your favor. So this was what he wrote in the letter, and he sent it to his client. So when the matter came up before the Supreme Court, it was held to be a misconduct. And ultimately, Supreme Court stated that this act on part of advocate is totally unfit or unbecoming of a lawyer. He is directly accusing the judiciary that the judge is charging a bribe, and he has written a letter to the client. So these kind of acts here are something where the lawyer is deemed to be unfit to practice in that particular profession. Okay, so ultimately, if you read the Supreme Court, what it has stated that it is not a trade or a business. You are here to serve the society, and members who are belonging to the profession have a particular duty to uphold the integrity of the profession, right? So you have to uphold the integrity of the profession in which you are in and to discourage the corruption, right? And you are serving the society. So here the act of the advocate was considered to be misconduct of the highest degree, and it is not only obstructing the administration of justice, but it also eroded the reputation of the profession in the opinion of the public. So these kind of acts are considered to be the professional misconduct. Similarly, in this case also, if you see, even though if you are a litigant, if an advocate is a litigant in a particular suit, you have to maintain decorum, you have to maintain a proper code of ethics. Just because you are litigant in the suit, you cannot abuse the other side. You cannot go and punch the complainant on the other side. So here the advocate, though he is a litigant in the suit, he punched or he hit the other side complainant, and he gave him a warning in the open court stating that you have to withdraw this case. Okay, so this amounted to professional misconduct also. So continuous adjournments, if you're going on taking adjournments without any reason, and if you're making the other side unnecessarily waiting without making any other alternative arrangements, then it is nothing but a dereliction of duty. You cannot go on take the adjournments. You cannot postpone the witness cross-examination of witnesses or chief examination of witnesses. This would amount to dereliction of a duty. So this is also amounting to professional misconduct. So this is just this is one more aspect which I thought of just giving you an insight. Lawyer's dress code. If you don't wear a proper dress code, then it would amount to contempt of court. Okay, this is very, very important point here. Very recently during COVID time, we have seen people wearing banyan and going before and sitting before the virtual system and arguing the case. Do you think that is justified in a legal profession, in a noble profession like this? Then the court really gave the order that it is nothing but the contempt of the court, and immediately the Supreme Court it has issued a circular all over the states saying that there should be a proper dress code, and if it is a virtual proceedings which during pandemic time, then there is no need for wearing the coat, which you can see it here. This portion, there's no need for you to wear the coat, and neither there is a need for you to wear the gown. Okay, so neckband along with white shirt and the trousers. So this is what is the formal code of conduct which is issued in the form of a circular by the Supreme Court during the COVID times. So when you are representing before the court, you have to have a proper attire that will reflect your confidence, and that will reflect your nobility in the profession. So black here, why do you wear black coat and a black gown? It represents submitting yourself before the judiciary. That is, you are here to provide the justice to the society. That shows your submission. And why white? White is the color of peace, nobility, right? And also fairness and purity. So whatever ethics you are following, that all reflects on white collar band, right? So this is how the dress is there, and this is just an analysis of the authors, but generally in the good old times there were no much color prints, so this black and white was considered to be a set standard for all the professionals. So other cases which actually amount to professional misconduct, if you see here, practicing in the court which is presided over by a relative, this is also amounting to a professional misconduct. You cannot go and practice you cannot go and represent your case where your father is the judge in the same court. Okay, so you should withdraw yourself and say that I cannot represent the matter in this case, and please go to some other advocate, right? So that ethics should be there on your part itself, right? So that will show your integrity. And preparing false documents and giving improper advice, we have discussed this. Agreeing to a share in actionable claim, we have also discussed this. If some lady, you are contended for alimony, huge amount of alimony is received by her, you cannot say that I should have a share in that alimony, okay, because I have won. You have won the case and you have got so much of alimony, I need a 10% of share from your alimony. That is not how you should be asking. And that also amounts to professional misconduct. Acquiring property which is the subject matter of the suit, same thing as above. So negotiating directly with the party, this is also very clear. You cannot go as a lawyer to the other side party. That is directly you cannot approach the party. If you want to negotiate the matter, if you want to settle the matter out of the court, you have to approach only the other side advocate, right? Advocate should negotiate with the other side advocate. You cannot directly go to the party and negotiate or come to a compromise in any of the matter. Sixth point, advertising directly or indirectly. It is nothing but the Supreme Court itself has clearly said no person, no professional should give the advertisement saying that we practice in so and so, we are so and so, and I am the member of so and so body, or I have achieved so and so award. Nothing, no such advertising is permitted in legal profession. Why? Because it vulgarizes the profession. You are here to serve the society, not to make money. This is the simple concept here. Serve the society. Whatever awards you are winning, keep it for yourself. You are serving the society. Don't market yourself. That is what is why the advertising is banned here. You know, the professionals like MC Mehta, Harish Salve. Harish Salve, he took only 1 rupee to contend the case of Kulbhushan Yadav case in ICJ before International Court of Justice. He took only 1 rupee as a fee. That also because he has to take. Why here? The ethics. He's contending. He's there talking on behalf of India. His intention there is to serve the society there. Whole of India, he is trying to contend before International Court of Justice, before the world. He's trying to elevate why India is supporting here Kulbhushan Yadav, an individual, and why this case has come up before ICJ. So here, the ethical values of senior advocates, if you see, they never try to mislead the court. And even MC Mehta, all the environment related cases, he did it selflessly. That is, selflessly he came up before the court and he said, see there, oleum gas is leaking. See here, Ganga water is getting polluted because of all the tannery industries. See, glaciers are melting. So tourism should be stopped. So why he is doing this? As a lawyer, he is there to serve the society. He's there to bring the facts before the court and let the court also assist and give the judgment in the right way to serve the society again. So all these selfless and relentless services which are offered by all these senior advocates are not, you cannot take it for light, or you cannot take it just like that. They have ethical and moral values with them, which gave them the name and fame. Okay, which gave them the name and fame. So the ethics and values that you follow, the consciousness with which you wanted to, you know, bring up into the society, that you wanted to serve the society, that will give you an excellent standing wherever you are in the profession. Lastly, defrauding the client. Of course, you cannot exercise fraud on the client. You cannot go and enter into the other side counsel, and you cannot settle the matter like that. Okay, so defrauding the client is also amounting to professional misconduct. So these are the other misconducts: running a business while professing law, becoming a full-time salaried employee. Like me and Shahista ma'am, we can't go and practice in the court because we are already a full-time teaching lecture. We are already a lecturers in the college. We cannot go and practice. So failure to transfer name from one state bar council to other. If you have changed your state of practice, today you are in Maharashtra. Tomorrow, if you come to Telangana, you want to practice here, within 6 months, you have started your practice in the Telangana court, get enrolled in the State Bar Council. And continuing practice during suspension or removal of the name from the rolls, this is also not allowed, and this would also amount to misconduct. Submitting false returns of IT, be careful. Refusal to obey the laws. Yes, if there are any laws which are made specifically for the lawyers, you have to obey them. You have to obey them. Making false statements. Yes, you cannot make false statements when you're pleading before the court. Reckless conduct. So you cannot be reckless or negligent in your conduct. And promoting divorce. I am a famous divorce lawyer. I am going to grant divorce to you all, whoever is coming before me. You should not do that. You should try to resolve the matter. Maximum, you should ensure that the parties get compromised among themselves and then send them to the counseling. If possible, you give the counseling. There are counseling centers, refer them to the counseling centers. And if nothing is working, then then you take the matter before the judge. The judge will question you. Have you tried to resolve the matter? Have you tried to send them to the counseling centers? Only after the judge is satisfied, he will take up the matter and he will look into the case. Okay. Lastly, I would like to conclude that Doyen Justice K.V. Krishna Swami Iyer, how he has tried to define what legal professional is. Then he calls legal profession as the most brilliant and attractive of peaceful professions. Okay, if you follow all these ethical values, all the what do we say, code of conduct, it is a peaceful profession. It is, of course, you are doing nothing but talking truth. You're just trying to help the society. It is a peaceful part, right? With responsibilities both inside and outside. So what is inside and outside it? Inside, you are trying to benefit yourself by charging fee from the client. Of course, that is for your personal benefit. Outside, you are serving the society. You are assisting the judiciary to reach to the right judgment, all that. And which no person carrying out other professions has to shoulder it. Okay, no doctor, no chartered accountant. They are bothered about, they are also doing that part, but limited to that client. They are trying to save the person, whoever is there before them, right? Doctor tries to give his best. During COVID times, they are the gods, right? So doctors, they are trying to help us out, help each and every individual who is coming to them. I'm not denying their profession is a little one, but the only thing is we shoulder the responsibility in such a way that our main contention or target is to help the society and think bigger. We think bigger at a larger scale. Okay. When a client is there, we try to help the client, right? So this is what is the primary task of a lawyer, and this is how Advocates Act accomplishes the nobility in the legal profession. And also, only if a professional is following the certain code of conduct and ethics, you will be a successful lawyer in your life. No senior lawyer tries to mislead the judiciary. No senior lawyer tries to play with the facts, and no senior lawyer displayed the wrong code of conduct in any time of his entire life. So they are there to serve the society relentlessly and selflessly. Thank you so much. With this, I conclude my presentation. And Shahista ma'am.
Thank you, Rama ma'am. It was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Shahista ma'am. With all your encouragement, I think I have taken up this topic actually. You wanted me to deal with this topic, so I just...
I was that much sure that you are going to give justice to my students, and that is why I contacted you, that you are the right person to do the honors today. Yes. Now I request Priyanka Oswal to do the propose vote of thanks.
Okay, just before proposing vote of thanks, I would like to thank Navjeevan Law Society, the principal of Law College, Navjeevan Law Society, Law College, and also Dr. Shahista Inamdar, a wonderful lady with high amounts of energy and a very proactive person I have ever seen in my entire life. And really nice to be a part of your Law College, ma'am, to deliver my lecture. And anytime you can, ask me for delivering a guest lecture, happily I will do my part as much as possible. And thank you so much, Shahista ma'am. And thank you so much, the co-coordinator, sir, also, Pandey sir, and also the students for patiently listening, and the other members, whoever are there in this presentation today. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, if I may add, I would like to personally thank Ms. Ramadevi, ma'am. This is one of our ex-students, Nandini from Pendakanti Law College, Hyderabad.
Oh.
Thank you to the organizers for giving us an opportunity to listen to our ma'am after such a long time.
Hello, Nandini. Yeah.
And it was a refreshing class, which is useful for about regards our 5th sem. It's the current topic, very useful topic, ma'am.
Oh.
Thank you so much for the refreshing, ma'am.
Thank you, Nandini. Thank you so much. I thank again the Navjeevan Law Society, Law College, for giving me this opportunity to meet my previous students also.
Thank you, ma'am, for organizing this.
Ma'am, I would like to add in between. This is Jaya Hiranandani from PLC.
Yeah,
I
remember.
Talks to us, ma'am.
Yes, Jaya. Nice.
Thank you so much for today's lecture, ma'am.
Thank you. Anytime. Thank you, Jaya. Thank you.
Ma'am, I would like to request the organizers to keep sending us any new sessions if they are there. We would love to be a part of it, ma'am, and gain more knowledge. Thank you for this seminar, and we are hopeful to be part of many more seminars organized by the organizers. Kindly do include us.
Yes, surely. Just before proposing vote of thanks, I would like to add a few things for the other participants other than Navjeevan Law College. That for this particular subject, I and my students of this year batch, because of this pandemic, it was very impossible for us to meet. So what we did is, through my YouTube channel, Dr. Shahista Inamdar, you can just surf it. And you can find out that we have prepared pictorial presentation of various case laws relating to professional ethics and contempt of court law. So we have done this, which is, I think so, a new technique in this pandemic situation. We can take it a positive aspect, and we have done this just on a click. You can get on Dr. Shahista Inamdar's YouTube channel. And secondly, if you have not joined the WhatsApp,
ma'am, kindly
even
in the chat box, ma'am. We would love to join the WhatsApp group and the YouTube channels that you're talking about. If you could kindly place the information about them in the chat box, we'll accordingly be useful.
Before ending up the session, we'll post the YouTube channel link and the WhatsApp group link also, so that as this is just an end of phase 1, but more phases are coming in the next week. So now I request Priyanka Oswal for vote of thanks.
Yes, ma'am. I'm audible.
Yes, Priyanka. Yes, Priyanka.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, ma'am. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. I, Priyanka Oswal, student of LLB second year, Navjeevan Law College. I am here to present the vote of thanks for today's lecture. I would like to thank to our resource person, Dr. Rama Devi Madam, for enlightening us with their knowledge. Today's lecture was so full of knowledge and interesting things. It gave deep insight into the topic. The topic where Dr. Rama Devi Ma'am told us about the Advocate Act, professional ethics, and it was a very informative. I'm pretty sure that previous knowledge that Dr. Rama Devi Ma'am gave us will definitely help in our studies and future. Once again, I would like to express our gratitude on behalf of Navjeevan Law College, Dr. Dilip S. Uke sir, Dr. Apeksha Agrawal madam, and Dr. Rama Devi madam. The entire other supporting organization team and participate who has made this phase 1 series successful and fulfill it. Let me call it fertility for putting lighting on the important legal aspects here together. And one on my own behalf, extend a very heartily vote of thanks to all speakers for gracing our important work and sharing with us our knowledge. Coming to the end of phase 1, I thank to Honorable Bade Sir and Bade Madam and our Principal Sir, Dr. K.K. Rio Sir, for giving permission to organize this lecture series, their concerned support and whole team of Navjeevan Law College. I want to thank to Dr. Shahista Inamdar ma'am and our event coordinator, Sir, Professor Makarand Pandey Sir, to encouraging and helping us to carrying out this virtual lecture series and giving to exposure to vertical insights and knowledge. I want to thank the students community who really worked hard to make this event grand successful for phase 1. Thanks to all students and participants who are present here for paying your attention and listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Priyanka.
Thank you, Priyanka.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, friends. We have completed our first phase very successfully, and very soon we are going for second phase. And I'm sure that whatever the response you have given for the first phase will continue for the second phase also. Well, I congratulate all of you for participating and give you a very happy new year in advance. Okay. So
Thank you very much, sir.
very good, very good. And we meet for the second phase, and myself and Inamdar madam will share it very soon. So all of you should join for the second phase also. We are calling resource persons, highly experienced resource persons for you. So give your response as you have given for the first phase. And I hope so. We are going for the new year, and in the new year also, feast will be there, and experience and expertise lectures are going to be arranged for you. So let us hope for this curtain of virtuality will end in the new year, and we are face to face, we are going to meet. So this is a hope from all of us for the new year. So Shaista madam, yes, what do you want to tell you for the students?
Yes, I wish Happy New Year to all. Let us say goodbye to 2020.
साउंड हो रहा है आपकी आवाज.
Yes, we are saying goodbye to 2020 and we are welcoming 2021. This is an end to phase one. It was really wonderful work and a teamwork from our Navjivan Law College, all the faculty, students, everyone who, without their support, it wouldn't have been possible. So I thank each one of you to be here, and let us make this virtual lecture series as more successful in other phases too. So I request all of you to on your videos so that we can have a virtual glimpse for today's session. Kindly on your videos, let us have virtual photo session on your videos, please. Kindly fill the feedback form after the session. You'll receive the certificate. 100 people will receive today, and anyone left out can kindly contact me so that I can give you the link for tomorrow. And again, 100 people more can get tomorrow. On your videos, let us have a photo session today.
Ma'am, how do we contact you, ma'am? Could you kindly post your phone number in the chat box so that we can talk contact you regarding the next session?
Yeah. WhatsApp group is also there. So we are, I think so, they'll be giving you the link to join. I'll send you my mobile number, WhatsApp number, so that you can just contact me, and I'll forward the details of the program, and I'll share with you WhatsApp group link so that you can join. Almost more than 190 people are there in that group. Yes, Deshpande has provided you the WhatsApp group link so that you can join it, and further phases, details and the brochure would be launched soon. Even we will be having a few speakers from abroad. So kindly be tuned, be in connection. Yes, kindly on your videos, let us have a virtual glimpse together. And I wish Happy New Year to all. Be ready, say cheese. Yes, Dipti, do the needful and take the photographs. Deshpande.
Happy New Year to one and all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hope we get out of this pandemic at least in this year, and be back to our normal lives.
Yes.
We are missing all our students' beautiful faces.
Thank you.
Yeah, see you, Shaista ma'am. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Goodbye.
Thank you, Pandey sir. Thank you, Principal sir, and all other organizers of this event. Thank you. Thank you, students. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Law College.